All right, the UFC is back this Saturday for UFC Fight Night. Cejudo versus Song from the Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle, Washington. This is the first UFC appearance in the Pacific Northwest in years, I think at least half a decade, and they get a main event here in the bantamweight division between the former two-division champion Henry Cejudo and the up-and-coming Song Yadong. Real quick, I mean, this poster, masterpiece. The UFC doesn't do many great posters. This is one of them. With the rain and with the Space Needle, this is amazing stuff. Also, folks, before we get into the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more weekly MMA content here on the channel. Last week, we talked about a new MMA channel here, and yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. So, make sure to subscribe to Greedo Plays MMA. That is linked in the description down below. It is the first link in the description down below. Make sure to subscribe. We will be starting on this channel for UFC 3, I think it's 14, Ankalaev versus Pereira. I believe it's 14-3-13. Pereira versus Ankalaev. March 2nd will be the first video on this brand new channel. So yes, next week's Fight Night card between Menifield and Asu Almabayev will still be on this channel. But after next week's card, we are moving everything MMA related to Greedo Plays MMA. That includes Bellator was gone, PFL, and the Global Fight League as well, and we will have more MMA-specific content on this channel, so make sure to join us over there. Again, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below on both channels, obviously, but again, we are fully moving everything MMA over to that channel come March 2nd for Pereira versus Ankalaev, but again, next week's prediction video will still be on this channel with Menifield and Asu Almabayev. And also, folks, make sure to go check out our daily college basketball best bets on the channel. We do that, again, on the channel every single day. Let's move on to our first fight. By the way, this card is absolutely, it's just cursed. Quickly, let's read off all of the fights that have gotten either postponed or canceled or moved. We just found out, I found this out 20 minutes before recording this video, that Adam Fugit versus Billy Ray Goff in the welterweight division's off. I think there's an injury to Fugit. I don't know if Goff is going to get a replacement fighter. So we are now down to 11 fights as of now, but let's listen to all the fights that got canceled. Kellen Vieira versus Macy Chasson is off. Not like we're missing much there. Edson Barbosa, Steve Garcia was going to be a really good fight. Barbosa withdraws. They do not get a replacement for Garcia. Originally, Adam Fugit was supposed to take on Islam Dulatov, but of course, Billy Ray Goff stepped in instead. Curtis Blades versus Rizvan Kuniev has been moved to UFC 313 in Vegas, and it's a prelim fight. They put Yasmin Lucindo and Marina Rodriguez on the main card over this? What are we doing? Mansour Abdul-Malik was supposed to take on Antonio Tricoli. Malik will talk about his fight in just a couple minutes here. And the big one that is off, supposedly, or supposed to be the retirement fight for the great Dominic Cruz. Cruz dislocated his shoulder. He's officially going to hang it up. Rob Font gets a replacement fight. We're going to talk about that later in the video. So yeah, all those fights have been canceled, and now we start the night off with Modestas Bukauskas and Rafael Cerqueira. Also, by the way, we're hitting at a 75% rate on MMA so far this year. I'm just saying. We went 10-2 last week, 74, I think, percent more specifically we've been hitting at all year long. My goodness, we're on fire. We're starting things off here in the light heavyweight division with Bukauskas and Cerqueira. I'm probably butchering Rafael's name, but I mean, he had his first fight in the UFC, and it didn't go very well for him. He takes on Aslan, who we are going to talk about later, and Aslan TKOs him within the first minute. Now he's back 5 months later to take on Modestas Bukauskas. Bukauskas, of course, in his second stint with the UFC, but he's been good in the second run. He is 3-1 overall with a win over Tyson Pedro, Zach Pounga, a loss to Vitor Petrino when we actually thought Vitor Petrino was good at fighting, and then a win in his last one by submission over Marcin Prachnio. I mean, Prachnio was winning that fight on the feet at UFC 304 in the summer of last year, but Bukauskas was able to get that fight down to the ground. He was able to successfully get takedowns, and he was able again to find that submission. For Cerqueira, again, a guy who was very impressive in the region on the regional scene, didn't really fight anybody of note, but showed really impressive striking, had 8 TKO victories in the regional scene. This is a guy, though, who is 34 years old now in his second fight with the promotion, and again, his first bout in the promotion against Aslan, he could not get going. Aslan blitzed him right away, damaged Cerqueira, and eventually got that finish. I think everything kind of leans towards Bukauskas winning this fight. Bukauskas, for having many more fights in the UFC, having 7 more fights in the UFC, is 3 years younger, almost 4 years younger than the Lion here from Brazil. And I just think Bukauskas is better. I think Bukauskas is probably better on the ground. I think that's where his clear advantage is in this one, because really, well, honestly, Rafael's not really that good in general. That sounds harsh, I understand, but Aslan blitzed him right away and finished him. I think Bukauskas has an advantage on the feet as well. I'd be a little bit concerned with Bukauskas striking. Okay, hear me out. I wouldn't bet this fight, especially look at the odds of where they're at right now. I mean, Bukauskas hovering around that minus 300 mark, minus 325, plus 260 coming back for Cerqueira. Again, I would completely stay away because I do think Bukauskas could potentially get cracked and dropped in this fight. But again, if we're just picking a winner, yeah, I would expect Modestas to get it, but Bukauskas has been cracked many times. Vitor Petrino knocked him out. It was a TKO loss to Khalil Roundtree. That was the oblique kick, not going to really count it. But Jimmy Crute knocked out Bukauskas back in 2020. Obviously, again, Bukauskas left the UFC, won back-to-back fights, won the Cage Warriors Championship, and came back for the promotion, and now he's 3-1. But I wouldn't feel all that confident that he wins. Again, I think he does, because I'll be honest, I think Rafael's kind of fraudulent. I think, again, Bukauskas has very much potential to win this fight on the ground. But again, watching the way, Rafael got blitzed in his last fight and really didn't even put up a fight and got hit right away and rocked, I think Bukauskas should be able to do the same exact thing. Again, I just don't think Rafael's all that great. You look at what he did in the regional scene, nothing all that impressive. I am going to take the favorite here out of Lithuania and Modestas Bukauskas to win the fight by first round knockout here in Seattle. Again, I would not play anything on this fight. I just leave it alone. But again, we predict every single fight, so I'm going to take Modestas Bukauskas to beat the Lion, Rafael Cerqueira, by first round knockout. We go to our next fight here in the middleweight division, and we've got a huge favorite in Mansour Abdul-Malik. I think that line has come down a little bit since last night when I made the graphic, but still, Malik trending at around a minus 600 favorite. Klein coming back at you around plus 450. Two guys who are coming off the Contender Series just last year. Abdul-Malik has fought, though, since his Contender Series victory with a huge win over Dusko Todorovic, if you count that as a huge win. I mean, it was a solid victory. And Nick Klein, of course, gets his contract. If I'm not mistaken, Nick Klein's the guy who won his fight. He submits Geraldo Souza, who was supposed to beat him, by the way. He submits Souza in 37 seconds. He runs over to Dana White and says, John Jones is the greatest pound-for-pound fighter of all time. And obviously that right there, if his performance wasn't great enough, Dana White instantly gave him the contract, obviously, after Klein told him that. So Klein's in the UFC now. A mixed bag outside of the UFC. Now, again, he was 5-1 prior to making the promotion, but he came off a win over a 22-21 Corey Simpson by rear naked choke. A win before that over Colin Huckbody by submission in the third. And Klein has got pretty decent jiu-jitsu. But Abdul-Malik, I don't know. I think he's going to be a little bit tough to take down. I mean, we did see in his Contender Series fight Wes Schultz see some success wrestling, but not that much. I mean, Schultz took Abdul-Malik down twice in that second round, but Abdul-Malik was able to get back up pretty quickly. And the guy's just so physically strong. He is a huge guy in there for 170 pounds. And ultimately, again, that's why the odds look like where they're at, obviously, with Abdul-Malik at around a minus 700 favorite. It makes sense. Again, the guy's expected to win this fight. Klein, again, UFC name obviously now, but not a guy that anyone really expected to be in this spot. And I think he's kind of getting thrown to the wolves here. Klein is the older fighter. And again, Abdul-Malik, though, is just so huge for 85. He is 6'2", and he's got an 80-inch reach for 185 pounds. He's an MMA Masters guy down there in South Florida. Obviously, same gym as Colby Covington. And Abdul-Malik, again, as long as he's able to stay off his back in this fight, which I think he should be able to get it. I mean, we saw the way he beat Todorovic. It was not that long of a fight. He wins it in 2 minutes. Again, that was in November of last year. And now, again, Abdul-Malik is already back in the octagon. Got knocked down Todorovic and just nasty ground and pound after that. I think, again, if Klein's not able to get that takedown or just able to drag this fight down to the mat immediately, he's screwed. I think he's a sitting duck on the feet, and I think Abdul-Malik is much better on the feet. And again, the ground and pound out of him is nasty as well. The win over Wes Schultz was a TKO on the ground with ground and pound, his last victory in LFA. His striking game continues to evolve, and again, Abdul-Malik has got all that power, and I think he's going to be pretty solid in this one. He going into the UFC, kind of a green prospect, but this is the type of fight that he needs. Again, just keep on boosting his resume here, get him easier fights, and again, we'll see where he's at in a couple years. The guy's only 27 years old, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 27 years old, made his MMA debut back in 2021, so he's only been in the sport. He's been in the sport for less than 4 years. I like Mansour Abdul-Malik to go out here and pick up a first-round TKO victory over Nick Klein. Back-to-back TKO finishes to start off the card, but we like MMA Masters' own and Mansour Abdul-Malik to beat Nick Klein early again in the fight. We go to the bantamweight division, and we've got a matchup here between Ricky Simón and Javid Basharat. Simón a plus 230 dog. Basharat coming back at you at a minus 285 favorite. I understand the odds. Ricky Simón, I don't want to call Simón washed, but he does feel like he is on a downwards trajectory in his career currently. Simón 20-6 as a whole, but back-to-back losses for him. Sorry, 3 straight losses for him. He was in a main event spot in April of 2023 against, of course, one of our main event fighters tonight in Song Yadong. Yadong finished him in the 5th round. I wouldn't say, oh, it was pretty dominant by Yadong, but again, Simón was in the fight. He comes back, loses a pretty clear decision to Mario Bautista, and then they give him Vinicius Oliveira at UFC 303 International Fight Week of last year, and Oliveira beats him. But again, Oliveira's good, coming off a victory of Said Nurmagomedov, which we predicted, by the way, at plus money, just saying. But Simón, again, has lost 3 in a row, and now they give him just another really tough fight. Javid Basharat's good. I mean, he is. I know he's coming off a loss to Ayman Zahabi on that Rosenstruik versus Gaziv card in March of 2024, but Zahabi, I guess, is on a run now. That's kind of how we were looking at Ayman Zahabi now. Basharat in that fight didn't get the fight down to the ground, tried taking Ariel Horn, Ayman Zahabi down. Zahabi was just able to stuff all those takedowns and ultimately ended up winning a striking fight. And that's where the matchup gets interesting here, because we'll see if he's able to take down Ricky Simón. Simón, a pretty solid wrestler, obviously. It's very rare. I don't know if we've ever seen Simón, except for the Merab Dvalishvili fight, be on the back foot if a guy is trying to pressure him and wrestle him and take him down. I don't know if that's going to be the case in this fight, because we'll see if Basharat's just willing to stand and trade with Simón, which, if that happens, the way Simón's been fighting recently, I know, again, Basharat just lost a lot of the striking exchanges against Zahabi in his last fight, but ultimately, I think Basharat can probably win on the feet against Simón. Ooh, this is tough. I mean, we did see Basharat outstrike Trevin Jones for 15 minutes in his UFC debut, but since then, he has really gone wrestling heavy. He's doing all right on the feet against Victor Henry. Obviously, kicked him in the nuts, and that's how the fight ended. Brutal nut shot, by the way. Yeah, I don't know, because I don't think Simón's going to be able to take Basharat down. I don't know if Basharat's going to be able to take Simón down. I think the wrestling might cancel each other out here. This is a crapshoot to me. I mean, Simón from Vancouver, Washington, that is very far from Seattle. That's like 3 hours from Seattle. Vancouver's on the Oregon border. I've been there like once. It's kind of a hometown fight for Simón. He's training in Portland, obviously, which is, again, Portland's right next to Vancouver, Washington. It's literally like a 10-minute drive. I'll take Javid Basharat. I will. I think the wrestling kind of cancels each other out, and just the way that we've seen Simón trending recently, I do think Basharat should probably get this one. Again, Simón off 3 straight losses, got outstruck in the Oliveira fight, which, again, no shame in that. Oliveira's great. Bautista lost, but, you know, we want to hate on Mario Bautista, but he's a good fighter. And then Song Yadong, good fighter as well. Man, this one is tough to pick. Again, the odds I don't think should be this far out, but I get it, actually, because Basharat is 3-1 in the promotion. Hesitantly, I'm going to go Javid Basharat by unanimous decision. I can see Simón winning, I'm going to be honest with you. But I do think, again, I think Basharat wins in some exchanges wrestling-wise. And I do think he's the slightly better striker. I don't know, I just don't trust Simón at this point in his career, coming off 3 straight losses, taking on a younger guy in Basharat. Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty split on this one, but give me the Afghani fighter training out of Extreme Couture. I'm going to take Javid Basharat, the Snow Leopard, to win here in Seattle by unanimous decision over Ricky Simón. We go to the middleweight division, one of the easier fights to pick on this card, if we're just being honest. Nothing against Eric, but Nurulstan Ruziboev is probably winning this fight. Just gonna be honest. Eric is now in the UFC. If I'm not mistaken, this is one of Jared Cannonier's cornermen. And Eric McConico, probably butchered that, is getting a fight here with Nurulstan Ruziboev. Eric was supposed to main event the Tough Enough card last week, I believe. Fight got canceled, obviously, because he got signed into the UFC. Thing with Eric is he's been knocked out twice before in his career, and I get it, those come back in 2019, but he hasn't fought anybody other than Maki Pitolo. But he beat Maki Pitolo in the big 2023. Eric can scrap. He's not a bad striker. But Ruziboev, even though he was kind of disappointing in his last performance, he was fighting Joaquin Buckley, who has since obviously gone on to beat Stephen Thompson and Colby Covington. I get both those fighters are old, but I don't think we can, look down upon Ruziboev's last fight anymore, considering Buckley just went out and beat two guys who have been mainstays of the top 5 for the last 5 years in the welterweight division. So, and I get it again, those guys are old, but still, Colby, man, can we honestly, let's just do Colby and Wonderboy, all right? Let's do Colby and Wonderboy. I just need to see Colby pick up another win, and then he can hype up a fight against Ian Gary, and then probably lose. Anyways, Ruziboev should win this. Eric is coming down from 205, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, his last fight was at 205 over Jerome Hatch. He wins the fight by rear naked choke, but he has fought in middleweight before, fought against Matsumoto at 185, so again, he's more than capable, obviously, of making the weight. The thing is that Ruziboev's just so huge for 85. He's 6 feet, 5 inches tall. Eric McConico, fighting out of San Bernardino, California, is 6 feet. Which is great, but again, Ruziboev should just have the power to get him out of there, if I'm being honest. And again, Eric's taking this fight on short notice. Originally, Ruziboev was supposed to take on, I thought he had a fight. Did he not have a fight? Guess it just got scheduled randomly. I thought Ruziboev had one lined up. I mean, he's supposed to take on Hanat Fakhretdinov at the end of last year, but that fight, Ruziboev pulled out. Carlos Leal got screwed when he ended up fighting Fakhretdinov over there in Abu Dhabi. Regardless, I like Ruziboev to win this fight. We're going to take him by first round knockout. I think Eric, the tape I've seen of him, he's extremely hittable. I don't know, guys. I could be wrong. When's the last time there's a really good prospect out of Tough Enough? I genuinely can't tell you when the last time there's a really good prospect that came out of here. Because a lot of these guys, they get into fun fights. That's kind of the way Tough Enough is. They're all Vegas fights. I mean, they main event Maki Pitolo quite a bit. Naimov, I think, is the last, half-decent guy that came out of Tough Enough. Weston Wilson came out of Tough Enough, but obviously he was nothing when he came to the UFC. I don't know. I don't want to completely just pick against McConico, just because he's from Tough Enough, but he's extremely hittable. And Ruziboev, again, this is just a levels fight, if I'm being honest. And again, Eric was in the corner, this guy was in Vegas to corner, well, actually, I guess he wasn't there to corner Jared Cannonier because he's going to fight. But still, dog, it's a huge difference between going from Randall Wallace to Nurulston Ruziboev. He was originally supposed to take on Wallace, who is 22-10 and 35 years old. Now you get a 6'5" machine in Ruziboev, who, again, I think isn't the best, but he's way better than entry-level UFC fighters. I don't know. Again, we saw him chin Bruno Ferreira. He did eye poke Cedricus Dumas in Atlantic City at Boardwalk Hall, eventually getting the knockout that way. But Ruziboev should get this one, and it shouldn't last very long. Nurulston Ruziboev will win this fight by first round knockout. Next up was supposed to be Adam Fugit, Billy Ray Goff that fights off, so instead we go to a fight in the light heavyweight division. Again, we talked about Ibo Aslan, the Turkish fighter, a little bit earlier on this card, of course, with his win over Rafael Cerqueira just 3 months ago, and now he returns to take on Ion Cutelaba, who is actually coming off of a win. He beat Ivan Arslan by split decision. I didn't know Arslan was absolutely horrible like that. Now, Cutelaba with a decent win. He needed to get back on the winning ways, I guess. I mean, he beat Tanner Boser prior to that, the PFL zone now. Not PFL, the Global Fight League zone at Tanner Boser. But he now gets Ibo Aslan. This just feels like a really tough fight for Ion Cutelaba. Just because Aslan has looked good so far and Aslan will throw. To me, Ibo Aslan is a younger version of Ion Cutelaba. He just is. That's really how I see this fight. Cutelaba, yeah, he can kind of wrestle. I mean, that's what he did in the Arslan fight at points. But I mean, Arslan was the one winning a lot of those wrestling exchanges. But again, it was Cutelaba, pursuing the takedown for most of that fight. We saw him again go wrestle heavy against Devin Clark. But I mean, since that Devin Clark win, man, I mean, lost to Ryan Spann by submission, got choked out by Johnny Walker, got TKO'd by Kennedy and Zejiku somehow in a main event, beat Tanner Boser, and then lost to Felipe Lins, where Lins just outstruck him. I would expect Aslan to outstrike him as well. I don't think that's a hot take. I really think, again, Aslan's just the better guy in this fight. I know, again, Aslan is very unproven. He's had 2 fights in the UFC. The victory in his first one over Anton Turkalaji, the Pleasure Man is his nickname. He TKO'd him in the 3rd round, got his get back for his original loss to the Pleasure Man back in 2020, and then he went after that again over Cerqueira that we just talked about. But Aslan's striking is pretty solid. As we saw in the Turkalaji fight, or again, a pretty good back and forth fight, Aslan can't eat a punch. Now, I don't know if the Pleasure Man hits as hard as Cutelaba does, because Cutelaba can unload at points. I don't know if he's able to unload unload. I think he's able to unload more than the Pleasure Man can unload. Okay, I'll stop. But again, that Anton Turkalagi fight with Ibo Aslan showed that, all right, Aslan can take a punch, and then his next fight, again, he just melted Cerqueira. I think Cutelaba is just kind of washed, if I'm being honest. He's 7-9-1. Yeah, he's got power, but everyone hits hard. He does get submitted quite easily. Aslan's not going to be the guy to submit him. Aslan is a pure striker. Again, if you do see any wrestling in this fight, it likely will be Ion Cutelaba pursuing that because, again, of the lack of wrestling and grappling credentials we have seen out of the last Ottoman in Aslan. But I ultimately do think the -135 favorite here in Ibo Aslan does find a way to a knockout pretty quickly. Again, I'm expecting a lot of quick finishes on this card. This is already the 4th first round knockout. Should I go first round or second round? I might go second. No, we're gonna go first round. I think Aslan does kind of blitz him like he did to Cerqueira. I think he finds that shot pretty quickly, and I do think he picks up a knockout. Again, guys, since Aslan's first fight against Turkalagi that he lost back at Brave in August of 2020, Aslan has won 6 fights in a row, all by TKO or knockout. I think that continues here. I just think, again, what I said earlier, Aslan, I do think he hits harder than Cutelaba. I do think he's kind of quicker than Cutelaba. Again, I think everything that Aslan is just what Ion Cutelaba was, prior to the Magomed Ankalaev fight? I mean, because since those 2 Ankalaev fights, Cutelaba's not been the same guy. He's won 2 fights since then. 3. But I don't know. Cutelaba at one point, guys, going into the Magomed Ankalaev first fight in Norfolk, Cutelaba was looked at, all right, top 15 guy, kind of borderline top 15 guy, but here you go, we're going to match him up with Ankalaev. Again, the weird finish, because Cutelaba was trying to bait him by being knocked out. They fight again. Again, no one thought Cutelaba was going to win, but they put that fight on a main card of a pay-per-view, and he gets knocked out. So he has not been the same guy since those 2 fights against Magomed. And I think Ibo Aslan finds his way to the knockout in this one. Give me the last Ottoman by first round knockout over Ion Cutelaba. Let's go to the featherweight division as we have a fight now. It's a straight pick'em. We've got Andre Touchy Fili taking on Milk Costa. Andre Fili, a guy who's been in the UFC for a very long time. It's going to be his 24th walk into the UFC octagon this week. Of course, a Team Alpha male guy, obviously out of Sacramento, California. So a couple Team Alpha male guys on this card, obviously, with Song Yadong in the main event as well. But Fili coming off a victory over Cub Swanson in his last fight, a fight that, and a win, I guess, that's aging quite well for Fili, considering Swanson's last result, a big victory over Billy Quarantillo over in Tampa. Now, Quarantillo just has not been really the same guy since that Shane Burgos fight, if we're being honest, but it is what it is. Milk Costa, a guy who is 2-2 in the promotion, came into the UFC, short notice call, loses to Thiago Moises, beats Austin Lingo, gets TKO'd by Steve Garcia, again, who I was really excited to see on this card. Garcia has the longest knockout streak in the division right now, and we were going to get to watch him against Edson Barbosa on this main card. That fight, unfortunately, off. I hope it gets rescheduled. I don't know, let's just book it on the Kansas City card. By the way, did you guys see that Anthony Smith is going to have to fight Mingyang Zhang in Kansas City in his retirement fight? They just want to kill Anthony Smith, don't they? I mean, John Jones is probably hoping they finish the job. No, I'm joking. But it's crazy. I'm surprised. Like, really? You're going to send him out with Mingyang Zhang? You couldn't have given the guy, like, Ozzy Diaz? Yikes. Couldn't have given him like who's an older guy they could have given Anthony Smith at 205? I'm sure they could have found somebody. They gave him Mingyang Zhang. Wow. Milk Costa, his last fight, he beat Shaila Nordenbeka. Nordenbeka, I guess not as good as we thought he was at one point. I don't know. But for Andre Fili, again, a very up and down fighter, right? I mean, he's split his last 6 fights, gone loss, win, loss, now win. The Swanson fight was a good fight. It won fight of the night. Fili wins a lot of those striking exchanges, was able to come out on top in that one. Now you get him and Milk Costa. I think Costa does have the advantage on the ground. We've seen Fili submitted quite a couple times, and we've seen Fili knocked out as well. But I mean, this is just a fighter who has been in the promotion for so long. He's seen so many different guys in the octagon. I don't know if Milk Costa's yet on that level, because his wins are Austin Lingo, who is never the best. He just beat Lingo by decision. And then Nordenbeka, who has like 50 professional fights, but Shailan now is 3-3 in the UFC, coming off back-to-back losses. I don't know. Hesitantly, I am going to go with Andre Fili in this fight. I do think Fili's able to win a lot of those striking exchanges in this one. We're going to see, if Costa can take him down. But I mean, historically in the promotion, Andre Fili's 70% takedown defense rate, I think that should be all right. Again, I do think Costa does have the grappling advantage, but everywhere else, I do like Andre Fili. I think Fili does win on the feet. I think, again, Fili, I don't know if he's going to catch him and put him away. Probably not. But I do think Andre Fili wins in the striking exchanges here. So I'm going to take Team Alpha Male Zone. I get it. Andre Fili is 6 years older than Costa. But Costa, let's just be honest, has not been the most impressive in the UFC so far. Came into the promotion with a little bit of hype. I mean, he was the LFA champion at one point. I believe lost. Oh, no, he main evented on LFA. Never won the belt. But his last fight prior to getting into the UFC, main evented in Brazil for LFA. And then they just threw him Thiago Moises, which was a tough fight. And they lost to Steve Garcia as well. Again, Costa's fought tough guys, but I am going to take Andre Touchy Fili to beat him here by unanimous decision. We go on now to our next fight, another replacement fight on the main card. I saw Julius Walker tweet out on Twitter that he was very surprised he was on the main card, but he's opening now the main card against Alonzo Menifield. Menifield's been losing, so this one's interesting. I don't know the odds yet because this fight literally just got announced yesterday. I don't know where the odds are going to be at for this because Menifield hasn't been all that great. I think it's a great opportunity, I'll be honest, for Julius Walker. I think it is. I mean, a guy who didn't fight in the Contender Series get an immediate shot now into the UFC on a main card of a fight night against an extremely beatable Alonzo Menifield. Extremely beatable. It's just a matter of how good do you really think Julius Walker is? Coming off a win in Peak Fighting Championship, a win over Myron Dennis, who has been around for a very long time in LFA, fought in Bellator once upon a time, for a former Glory kickboxer. I believe he's quite old now, but a big win for Julius Walker to go out there and get the belt in what promotion? Peak Fighting Championship? Okay. He's now getting Alonzo Menifield. It is a step up. It's a huge step up. He has fought nobody, close to Alonzo Menifield yet. But it is a fight that he can win. It is. Julius Walker, not a bad all-around guy. I like how on Tapology his foundation style is ninja shit. I kid you not. That's what his profile on Tapology says he specializes in. That's great. Julius Walker is a 6-0 guy. Menifield's lost, though. Menifield off back-to-back losses to Azamat Murzakanov and Carlos Ulberg. Those are top guys, right? I mean, not top guys, but those are guys who are in the top 15 and have been established in the top 15 for quite a bit. And now you match him with the guy who's just making his UFC debut. I'm gonna take, oh God, I'm really split on this because again, Menifield prior to the Ulberg fight beat Dustin Jacoby, beat Jimmy Crute, had those back-to-back fights with Jimmy Crute, but now he's 37. I might take a chance on Julius Walker here, honestly. I know Walker, again, is not on the level of Ulberg or Murzakanov, but he's looked pretty solid, man. He's got heavy hands. Once he gets the fight down to the ground, he's got, he can go to his ground and pound. His submission skills have not looked that bad either, picking up a submission victory over Niall Bartling back in June of 2024. I'm curious to see where the odds are. I mean, whenever Bavon Lewis, former UFC name as well, I'm a little bit concerned, though, what happens once he gets out the first round. He's been training for a fight. He was booked against Mark Courier on Synergy Fight FC 15. This guy, he was supposed to fight a 3-5 guy? I might take Menifield. Yeah, I'm going to go with Alonzo Menifield, guys. I'm going Menifield by decision. I think, no, I'm going to go Menifield second round TKO. Yeah, I think he'll wear him out. Not Courier. Walker's been out the first round like once or twice. He is going to pursue that knockout. Again, he is going to go for it early in the fight. I just think Menifield's slightly better. I think. Yeah. Walker doesn't have bad ground skills. He doesn't, but I think Menifield gets him here. Hesitantly, I'm going with Alonzo Menifield. A lot could happen in this fight because, again, it was literally just announced. But it's Julius Walker's 7th fight in the UFC. Menifield is coming off back-to-back losses, but prior to that, he did beat Dustin Jacoby, and that was only a year ago now. He fought a bad fight against Ulberg. He just blitzed him and got chinned right away, and Murzakanov was just beating his ass the entire fight. Hesitantly, I'm taking Alonzo Menifield by second round TKO. I just don't think Julius Walker's seen anybody at this level yet. Not to say that, again, he's not going to be a half-decent guy in the promotion. It's just, again, he's immediately getting rushed into a matchup with Menifield. I will take Alonzo Menifield to take it. Again, very hesitantly, wouldn't play anything on this fight, but I will go with Alonzo Menifield to win the fight by second round TKO. All right, now here come the really good fights, right? This is a good fight, but here we go. Gene Silva versus Melzik Baghdasaryan. Now, is there any controversy about who's going to win this fight? No. We all know who's winning this. It's Gene Silva. Let's just be honest. It's a heavy step down is what it is. And I don't understand. I think a lot of people were very confused about the matchmaking of this fight when it got made, because it was like, all right, Gene Silva's coming off huge victories. The guy just beat Drew Dober in a great fight in Denver in July of last year. He comes back, and prior to that, by the way, he beats Charles Air Jordan, knocks out Charles Jordan on International Fight Week, fights again 2 weeks later, beats Drew Dober, and now he's back. But he's booked against Melzik Baghdasaryan, who, decent fighter, but he's 8-2, coming off a win over Tucker Lutz, who, again, like, is anyone getting excited about Tucker Lutz's victory? No. And that win was in July of 2023. And that was the fight that sent Lutz out of the promotion. Lutz went 1-3 in the UFC. Baghdasaryan since has been booked against William Gomez, Haider Amil, Mohamed Naimov. None of those fights have happened. Baghdasaryan's a 3-1 guy in the UFC, but none of his wins are still in the promotion. Colin Anglin's been well at the UFC. He hasn't been fighting all that well outside the promotion. Bruno Souza got cut after 2 losses. We might see him back, honestly, if he keeps winning. He's only 28. We might see Bruno Souza back at some point in time, honestly. I think he just kind of got rushed in too quickly. If I'm not mistaken, Bruno Souza fought Melzik Baghdasaryan on short notice. And then the other win, again, is Tucker Lutz. His loss is Joshua Kalibau. But here you go. I mean, Baghdasaryan, he's a kickboxer. Good luck against Gene Silva, who hits like a truck. It is really hard to wobble. We saw Drew Dober hit this guy with some big punches. Dober was very much in the fight against Gene Silva, even with the cut. Gene Silva eats a lot of those shots. Baghdasaryan, again, not a bad, like, technically skilled kickboxer. He's got tools. But does he got tools to beat Gene Silva out of the fighting nerds? No, he doesn't. Again, Gene Silva should be fighting up the ranks, not down it. I get it, on paper, yes, Baghdasaryan is a 3-1 guy in the UFC, but who has he beat? Nobody, and he has not fought since 2023. Again, the fight just doesn't make sense. It does make sense if you're thinking, all right, let's just get Gene Silva some more victories. And sure, again, yes, Gene Silva, though, should be fighting towards the top 25. No, top 20, top 15. Seriously, he should be fighting a guy like Dakar Close. All right, it's a very winnable fight for Gene Silva. But, like, that might be a step down from Drew Dober. Honestly, he should be fighting Faraziem. That would be good. Maybe that should be his next fight, right? Faraziem's on a big winning streak. William Gomez. Wait, no, Gomez fighting at 45. But still, wouldn't mind a fight like that. Oh, no, but Gene Silva's back at 45 now. Because I forgot, fought the fight at Dober. He went up to fight Dober at 55. Regardless, he could fight William Gomez. Love to see it. I think we've just been waiting for Gomez to get fraud checked for a very long time. That's the type of fights he should be having, not Baghdasaryan, who's nowhere near the top 25, if we're being honest with ourselves. I'm taking Gene Lord Silva by first round knockout, and it's not even that close. The guy's got so much pop in his shots, man. This is going to look like the Weston Wilson fight. I'm not going to say Baghdasaryan's like kind of the same fighter, because Weston Wilson is bigger than Baghdasaryan, and Weston Wilson's he's a karate guy out of Simpsonsville, South Carolina, obviously Stephen Thompson's guy. But they do fight kind of similar, right? I mean, Baghdasaryan uses his kicks to maintain distance, right? Kind of what Weston Wilson does at the same time. Now, again, I'm not going to tell you, like, Melzik Baghdasaryan is better than Weston Wilson 100%, but Gene Silva in that fight with Wilson was able to close distance, was able to find that big power shot, and was able to put him down. He's going to do the same exact thing here to Baghdasaryan. Again, all this fight is a fight to get Gene Silva on a main card of a fight night in front of a crowd, get people excited for Gene Silva, and boom, he gets on ESPN, he gets on all the socials with a huge first round knockout victory, and boom, we can hype up the fighting nerds again. Gene Silva picks up the victory. He goes now to 4-0 in the UFC. And again, I know it's a different weight class, but ultimately, yes, it just does feel like a step down from Drew Dober. You go from a perennial top 20/top 15 guy, to Melsik Baghdasaryan, who has not fought in 2 years. But again, Gene Silva, he's tasked with, he gets paid the same, he gets tasked with trying to go out here and put on a show and try to get a knockout early. I think he does exactly that. Let's keep the hype train rolling here with Gene Silva. He will beat Melsik Baghdasaryan, and he will do it by first round knockout. We move now to our featured fighter of the night, catchweight. At 140 pounds, Rob Font takes on Gene Matsumoto. Interesting fight. A really interesting fight. Rob Font originally supposed to take on Dominic Cruz. It's supposed to be the retirement fight for Dominic Cruz in the co-main event. And now here he is against Gene Matsumoto, who is 2-0 in the UFC with victories over Brad Katona and Dan Argueta. All right. There's not much to win here if you're Rob Font. There really isn't. Matsumoto has only had 3 fights in the... Sorry, this is only his 3rd fight in the UFC. Yeah, there's not much to win if you're Rob Font. I'm just going to be honest. You're supposed to take on one of the greatest of all time in your weight class. And now here you are against a guy who's 2-0, who's good. Oh, man. Matsumoto, I don't know if this is too much. It's not the same. That's not to the same extent as the Alonzo Menifield fight, obviously. But at the same time, it's like, all right, huge step up for Matsumoto. Take on Rob Font, who's been in the top 15 for a very long time. Can Rob Font fend off, again, the much younger fighter? I'm willing to say yes, though. And here's why. Rob Font keeps on beating these younger guys, right? When Rob Font takes on guys well into the top 15 or well in the top 5, he does tend to lose those fights, right? We saw that in his loss to Davison Figueiredo, as Figueiredo making his debut in the weight class, obviously. We saw that in his loss to Corey Sandhagen. But when he gets guys who are coming up the ranks, he usually does find ways to beat them. We're talking again about Kyler Phillips. We're talking about Adrian Yanez. I mean, a lot of people, myself included, thought Yanez was going to go out there and get Rob Font on that main card spot of a pay-per-view. But what did Font do? Again, Font found a way to win, found a way to TKO him. Same thing with Kyler Phillips. A lot of people thought Kyler Phillips was going to beat him, myself included. Rob Font was a plus 350 favorite, and he found a way to win and outstrike Kyler Phillips. I think this is just another example of him finding a way to win. Matsumoto was booked. He was supposed to fight at UFC 313, but that was in a couple weeks, obviously, and that was with his fight against Chris Gutierrez, another really tough fighter, but obviously Rob Font is, somewhat of a step up still from Gutierrez. So Matsumoto rushing the camp, didn't think he was supposed to fight, obviously, this weekend, but now here he is, because again, we had to reshuffle things with Dominic Cruz being out. And now here you go, here's Rob Font. I think it's a really tough fight for Matsumoto. Again, kind of not a little bit of a stylistic change, obviously, because Gutierrez is much more leg kick heavy than Rob Font is, but Font, a really solid boxer, obviously, out of the New England cartel, who has just been struggling recently, obviously, that camp. Obviously, with Calvin Kattar's loss, shout out to Yusuf Zalal, track runner now. What are we doing? But hey, a victory is a victory for Yusuf Zalal. And obviously Connor Matthews losing as well for the New England cartel. Yikes. I think Font gets one back, though. Again, Font's only losses are elite guys. Jose Aldo, Marlon Chito Vera, Sandhagen, Figueiredo. The guys who are coming up the weight class, he does seem to get. I think this is just another one of those y'all must have forgot type of performances out of Rob Font. Yes, we are talking about y'all must have forgot type of performances out of Rob Font. I know, but here we are. I think Font gets him. I think he does. I'm going to take Rob Font to win this fight by decision. Matsumoto's good. I think, again, it's just too much too soon, personally. I think that's what it is. I think Font's the better all-around guy on the feet, and I think Rob Font should be able to use that jab effectively. I think he should be able to find his combos, and I do think ultimately, again, Rob Font finds the way to victory. So I'm going to take, again, the veteran and Rob Font out of the New England cartel to go out here and pick up a win over Gene Matsumoto. All right, move on to our next one here. It is actually a rematch of a former LFA championship fight, if I'm not mistaken. I know it was an LFA. I don't know if it was for the LFA gold or not, but no, it wasn't. It was the main event. No, it was for the LFA title. Brendan Allen takes on Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. Good fight in the middleweight division. This is a fight that can really get Anthony Hernandez into serious title conversation, if I'm being honest. for Brendan Allen, trying to keep the positioning, obviously, up the rankings after his loss to Nasruddin Imavov by unanimous decision in September of last year. A fight at the time where I was like, all right, not a great fight for Allen. Wasn't the most impressive win for Imavov either, but still a good win. Well, now Nasruddin Imavov has beat Israel Adesanya. So now the loss doesn't look all that bad. Now, personally, I thought Brendan Allen lost the second fight to Chris Curtis. I thought Curtis kind of got robbed in that fight. I think if it wasn't for the very end of the fight where Curtis got injured, I think Curtis wins that 5th round. Again, that was nothing that Brendan Allen did to win the 5th. It was just kind of luck that Allen beat Chris Curtis. Now, Curtis, unfortunately, just keeps on going down the path of terrible luck. I'll just be honest. I mean, I feel for the guy after the Kopylov loss as well, but that's how the sport works sometimes. I don't know. It's a ruthless game, man. It is. But Brendan Allen, right, with his first loss in a while in the Imavov fight, and now he takes on Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, who's coming off of a main event victory in the Apex over Michel Pereira. Now, Pereira's booked in Kansas City in a couple of weeks. I think it's Kansas. Wait, I'm pretty sure the fight's in Kansas City. Is it? It's Kansas. Is that in Wichita or is it? No, it's Kansas City, I think, right? Or is it Des Moines? They're going all over the Midwest, but yet they can't bring a card to like San Jose or Oakland or San Francisco. I mean, what are we doing? I guess they don't want to come to the Bay Area. I thought the Central Valley was supposed to get a card too. Whatever. But we got to go all over the Midwest. All over the Midwest. Anyways, Fluffy Hernandez, right? Michel Pereira, by the way, is booked against Abus Magomedov. That's what I was getting to. But anyways, a huge victory for Fluffy, right? Dominates the fight. It's not even competitive. I mean, absolutely just runs right through Michel Pereira. Pereira had no answer. Hernandez is out-voluming him. He is dragging the fight down. It was just a relentless pursuit of the finish, and eventually he gets it by TKO in the 5th round. And that proves, yeah, Fluffy can go the distance. And he's been really good. He hasn't been fighting all that often, but Fluffy's been slowly building up this resume. Since losing his second UFC fight to Kevin Holland back in May of 2020, yeah, Kevin Holland beat Anthony Hernandez at one point in time. He's gone on a run. He beats Adolfo Vieira. It's a fight that still gets talked about to this day. Now, hey, who told you Andre Petroski was going to beat Adolfo Vieira as a plus 200 dog yesterday? Just saying. I'm just saying. Anyways, a win over Josh Fremd after that for Fluffy, a win over Marc-Andre Berriot, a win over Edmund Shabazian, and then, of course, those back-to-back wins and huge victories over Roman Kopylov. That was a fight that was seen as, all right, two guys who's going to break into the top 15 on the featured bout of a prelim card for that Anaheim card at UFC 298. He finds a way to submit Roman Kopylov in the second. And then what happens in the Michel Pereira fight? Again, kind of same situation. Both these guys, all right, first main event spot for both of them. Who's going to find their way into the top 10? It is not Michel Pereira. It is Fluffy Hernandez. And now here he is in a rematch with Brendan Allen. Now, we talk about that first fight all the way back in 2018, January 26th of that year. Fluffy Hernandez wins a 5-round decision against Brendan Allen to win the championship over there in LFA. Now, obviously, he went immediately to the Contender Series after that, but like most, highly touted LFA prospects do. But shout out to Fluffy Hernandez. He's made his way all the way back to the spot. Brendan Allen obviously was more active to start his UFC run. I believe Allen is still the younger fighter. Brendan Allen 12-3 in the UFC, Hernandez 7-2. But now Fluffy's caught up to Brendan Allen once more. And I think Fluffy Hernandez is just better. Brendan Allen doesn't really impress me on the feet, as we saw in his last fight. Sure, he hung with Imavov, but he was getting beat up there. Couldn't really take Imavov down. We saw Brendan Allen get outstruck by Chris Curtis. And I'm not telling you Fluffy's some knockout threat on the feet. He's not. But Fluffy Hernandez will be able to win the wrestling exchanges, I think, against Brendan Allen. Yeah, again, Brendan Allen, good wrestler, good jiu-jitsu. It's just Hernandez is just better. It's that simple. Again, I think this is just kind of a levels fight down there. And I get it. We're taking the guy who's climbing up the ranks right now, considering it, as opposed to Brendan Allen, who has kind of been within the top 15 for a little bit at this point, sure. But I am taking I'm taking Anthony Hernandez to find a way to win this fight. I think he wins it by decision. I would have liked to seen 5 rounds in this one. It's only 3. Because again, we have seen, and we've seen both these guys go 5 rounds multiple times now, but we've seen, again, as Hernandez's last fight went against Pereira, I mean, he was fighting that 5th round kind of like he was in the first. The gas tank was completely fine, and it's just an overall pressure game out of Fluffy. And I think that's what he does here to Brendan Allen. Yes, I do think he's able to find takedowns. I think he is able to pressure him with his grappling, and I think he's going to make it really tough on Brendan Allen. Allen's a good jiu-jitsu player when he's the one pursuing it, and when he's the one jumping on the back, and when he's getting the takedown. What we haven't seen, though, out of Brendan Allen in a long time is him being the one put on the back foot and being wrestled. I mean, the last time we saw that in the UFC was his victory over Jacob Malkoun. Malkoun tried to wrestle him, and Brendan Allen was, found ways to get reversals, found ways to get back up and sweep him, but Brendan Allen primarily won that fight on the feet. I guess it wasn't a great fight. But that's where Allen won his points back at 275 to Shara Prohashka against Malkoun, again, with the striking game. I don't think he's going to be able to get back up against Anthony Hernandez like he was against Jacob Malkoun. There's a big difference in that. And sure, the Malkoun fight was all the way back in 2022. Allen, I'll give him credit, is a very active guy. Hell, he even fights for the PFL sometimes. I'm joking. He fought at a PFL event against Marvin Vittoria at one point in time in a casino. I think it was at the Hard Rock. But I do think Anthony Hernandez gets him. I think Hernandez is able to mix it up with a feet. I think he's able to pressure Brendan Allen. I think he's able to find the way to the takedown, obviously. Allen was just severely underwhelming in his last performance. Really couldn't pull the trigger. Wasn't able to get the takedown. He was just kind of stuck against Imavov, and not the best fight in a co-main event in France in September. This is where Anthony Hernandez finds his way to continue to climb up the ranks. I'm taking Fluffy Hernandez to beat Brendan All-In Allen by unanimous decision. We go to the main event in the bantamweight division. We have got Triple C, Henry Cejudo taking on Song Yadong. Yadong, 11 years younger than Cejudo, who is now 38 years old. That's rough. Now, we can say it right away. Henry Cejudo should have remained retired, or he should have never retired in the first place. One of the two could have worked. If he never retired after the Dominic Cruz fight, he could have continued to make money. He could have continued to, improve on his, legacy. Now, would he have beaten Petr Yan? I don't know. There's a chance they would have just given him Jose Aldo next, though. There's a very good chance if Cejudo stuck around, right? You go back to 2020, he beats Dominic Cruz. If you remember correctly, that fight was originally supposed to be Jose Aldo, but then when the pandemic hit, Aldo couldn't get to the States, so Dominic Cruz was right there. So they gave Dominic Cruz the shot instead of Aldo. The original fight, though, before the pandemic hit, was Cejudo and Aldo in Brazil. They probably would have given Cejudo Aldo. For as much as I like Jose Aldo, I think that Henry Cejudo at that time probably beats Jose Aldo. Then Petr Yan takes on Aljamain Sterling. Not in a 5-round fight though anymore, in a 3-round fight. I think Aljo probably beats Petr Yan still back then. I know you might want to laugh, but Aljo is the greatest 135-pounder of all time. And there's an argument in that first fight with Yan, the 2 rounds Aljo won were rounds 1 and 2. So in a 3-round bout, I think Aljo wins a decision. So then you would have got Aljo and Cejudo, not on the exact same timeline as their actual fight in real life, but I think ultimately Cejudo kind of ends up on the same timeline. He loses to Aljamain, then he gets booked against Merab Dvalishvili, he loses, and here he is in the same spot against Song Yadong. But if he never retired though, you get a Jose Aldo victory on top of that. Again, maybe you get a fight in between. Obviously, you probably would have one more fight, not named Merab or Aljo. But I don't know. I think, again, and also, though, Cejudo would have had a much better chance of beating Aljamain if he never stopped fighting. Because when he fought Aljamain the first time, regardless, I still think Aljamain beat Cejudo, but still, Cejudo was out of the sport for 3 years. I know he was still training, but he hadn't fought in 3 years. Then he gets propelled right into a fight with the greatest bantamweight ever, and he lost a split decision to Sterling. Now, for as much as I love Aljamain, it looks like Merab Dvalishvili will probably take that crown for greatest bantamweight of all time. Merab probably will fight Petr Yan in the summer. He 50-45'd him the first time around. I wonder what's going to happen again. Yan's good. Merab's on a different level, and then we're probably gonna get Santhagen O'Malley. I just think Merab's gonna clear out this weight class, guys. I don't know who beats this guy. It's certainly not gonna be O'Malley or Santhagen. I'm sorry, Song Yadong, it's not gonna be you either. Now, Song's good, and let's talk about Song Yadong, right? 21-8-1 professionally. He's had a million fights though, coming off a loss in March of last year in Miami against Petr Yan. A competitive fight. Song Yadong wins that first round against Petr Yan, but then Yan, as the fight continued, just started to take over. Yan winning the second, Yan winning the third round, and ultimately winning the fight. Prior to that, though, Song Yadong with back-to-back victories over Chris Gutierrez and Ricky Simone. Where I am stuck on this fight, though, is Song Yadong has never beat a guy like Henry Cejudo. And how washed up is Cejudo really? That's what makes this fight so intriguing to me. All right, Cejudo has lost back-to-back, but he lost to Aljamain and Merab, who I think in 3 years will likely be looked at as 1A and 1B all-time-wise in the weight class. Dominic Cruz would be the third, but still, right? Okay. Cejudo, arguably, his last 3 fights, just fought the 3 greatest bantamweights of all time. Yeah, TJ Dillashaw. Well, he fought Dillashaw before Dominic Cruz, and he fought Demetrius Johnson. Cejudo's fought some dogs, man. When you think about it, man, Cejudo, I get he's 38 years old, but my goodness, look at the guys Henry Cejudo's fought. Demetrius Johnson, TJ Dillashaw, Marlon Moraes, best for a world championship, and Moraes, former World Series of Fighting champion back in his day. He's in the Global Fight League now. Dominic Cruz, Aljamain Sterling, Merab Dvalishvili. It's hard to find better guys than that. Cejudo's only fought the best guys, and I get it, Song Yadong up and comer, but who the hell is Song Yadong beat? Chris Gutierrez in a main event, Ricky Simone in a main event, Marlon Moraes way after Cejudo beat him. I mean, Song Yadong's loss is Petr Yan, won the first round, gassed out after that. Corey Sandhagen was winning that fight. Yes, Yadong was competitive, but Sandhagen wore him down and ended up winning the fight by 4th round TKO. Guys, I don't think it's that crazy to say Henry Cejudo wins this fight. He's a plus 225 dog, sure, but I can't believe I'm going to do this. I'm going to pick Henry Cejudo to beat Song Yadong. I know he has not won a fight since the very beginning of the pandemic. Yes, it has been since 2020, since Triple C has won a fight. But I am actually taking Henry Cejudo to beat Song Yadong. Yeah, I am. Petr Yan landed takedowns against Song Yadong. Yadong didn't wrestle him. I mean, did all right wrestling, but if Yan's able to take him down, I think Cejudo should be able to too. The only thing that is stopping Henry Cejudo in this fight is his age. He's 38. Don't forget, he won a round off Merab. He did. It was the first round. Lost the next 2, obviously, convincingly. Obviously, Merab picked him up and slammed him. Walked him to the other side of the octagon. But if Cejudo's still serious about fighting, which it seems like he is, at least with his social media presence, this is a fight he should win. It's a guy who's 11 years older than, sure, but Song Yadong hasn't beat anybody like Cejudo. He's only lost big fights like this to top guys. Again, Sandhagen and Yan are proof of that. Yeah, I'm going with Triple C. I'm going to go with Cejudo to beat him by decision. I think Cejudo wins a lot of these wrestling exchanges. We've seen Cejudo, well, obviously he's going to win the wrestling exchanges. I think Cejudo's able to stay. Cejudo's never been finished in the feet, so people picking Song Yadong by knockout, it's like, all right. Okay, Cejudo got TKO'd by Demetrius Johnson, but that was back in 2016. Like, since he became Triple C, he hasn't been knocked out, and he's fought, sure, hasn't fought the best of strikers, but I think Cejudo gets him. Yeah, I don't mind the plus money here for Henry Cejudo. Plus 225, I'm going to take Henry. I'm going to take Henry Cejudo. I'm going to take Henry Cejudo by decision. I think Cejudo does grind this one, and I think Cejudo beats Song Yadong wrestling. Yeah, Yadong's good on the feet, but I think Cejudo out-grapples him. This is the fight to me, though, that's going to dictate and determine if Cejudo's really washed. Because if Cejudo can't beat Song Yadong, for as good as Yadong is, he is beatable. Top guys have beat him before. And if Henry Cejudo's not able to beat Song Yadong, he should retire. I'm just going to be honest. There's no pathway to the belt anymore. He's done, right? Maybe you can do one retirement fight so we can hype it up. Oh, you know, Cejudo's last dance. We'll give him, I don't know. Honestly, if he loses, give him Jose Aldo. Regardless, actually, give him Jose Aldo. Yeah, regardless, I want to see Jose Aldo after this. And then again, we can, say goodbye to Cejudo because he's 38 at this point. But if he is trying to make one last run of the belt, he has to beat Song Yadong. Absolutely. I know he's a big dog, but I'm going to take him. I'm going to take Cejudo. Yadong has never won a fight like this. Yes, he can strike. Cejudo's seen very good strikers before. I don't think Song Yadong puts him away, and I don't think Song Yadong is the best defensive wrestler. It's kind of a fight catered towards Cejudo if he can put all the pieces together. So I'm going to take Triple C to win. I know he's not won a fight in 5 years, but I think this is where he gets it. Give me Cejudo with the pace. Give me Cejudo with the wrestling. I just don't think Song Yadong has beat anybody on this level, obviously, so that's where we're going with Cejudo. Give me Triple C, Henry Cejudo, to win in the main event here in Seattle, Washington, over Song Yadong. And folks, that'll do it for our UFC predictions from Seattle this week with Henry Cejudo and Song Yadong in the main event. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video, and make sure to comment if you do disagree with any of the picks. We'll be back next week for Fight Night, UFC Fight Night, Kopp versus Almbayev from the UFC Apex. And again, after that, we are going to Greedo Plays MMA for UFC 313, Pereira and Ankalaev. So make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for both of the channels. Folks, thank y'all for watching. Make sure to leave a like and make sure to comment if you do disagree with any of the picks. Folks, thank y'all for watching, and Mamba forever.